Hey, welcome back to The Dive. Today on the show, we have the CEO of Emergent Mining Corporation, David Watkinson. David will be joining us today to discuss what would happen to gold if there were to be a market crash, the possibility of a new currency backed by gold, where we are in the copper cycle. He's also going to share an update on Emergent Mining. He'll fill us in on the company's recent successes and why the company likes the jurisdictions they're in and what to look forward to from Emergent moving forward. Hey, David, welcome to The Dive. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so David, let's talk about gold. Rich Dad Poor Dad author Robert Kiyosaki has issued a warning to investors through Twitter that the crash is here, but told his readers not to panic as this is actually good news for gold. Do you agree that a market crash will increase the price of gold?
Yeah, I certainly believe if there was a crash, the price of gold would increase. There's so many things that are happening in the world that are hard to predict and hard for financial markets to understand. Things like the Ukraine war going on and other things beyond the control of the general governments. So, it's possible that, we could have a crash, a recession coming, and that could lead to an increase in the price of gold.
China imported 1,300 tons of gold in 2022, the highest import level since 2018. There's always been speculation that the country holds far more gold than it officially reveals and keeps several thousand tons of gold off the books in a separate entity called the Safe. What do you think the chances are that we could see a new currency emerge that is backed by gold?
I mean, it's certainly possible. We've seen China as a rising power, and I've certainly read articles about Russia and China and other countries looking at trying to develop their own or alternative currency to U.S. currency. So I think there may be an effort to do that in the future, but the U.S. currency is still the most attractive currency in the world. So it's hard to predict whether that's going to be a short-term type of thing, but I think in the long term, certain countries would like to see an alternative currency to the U.S. Currency.
Okay, so let's switch gears here. Where do you think we are right now in the copper cycle?
I think copper or base metals are going to go through a period where we have shortages again. If the Chinese economy starts to come back and they start to consume products, we're going to end up where we were, probably similar to what we were in the early 2000s, where we had a shortage of metals and a shortage of other things. There wasn't refinery capacity to produce oil or gas, for example, or mining companies struggled to find tires for equipment because there wasn't manufacturing capacity. So the Chinese economy starts to take off again. We could go through a period of time where we have shortages in metals, and that's going to drive the price of base metals like copper up.
Okay, now let's talk about Emergent Metals. Could you give us the high-level elevator pitch for the company?
Yeah, so Emergent is a company that focuses on strategic acquisitions. We try to add value to those projects we acquire and then look to divest of them. So we're not looking to become a producing company. In the past, a junior company might look at acquiring a project and advancing it and ultimately becoming a producing company. But the time frame to do that today is 20 years by the time you get a project and do exploration and permit it and finally get it into production. So what we're focused on is resource generation at the early part of what's called the life cycle of a mine. And it's also called the Lassonde curve. So we are focused on trying to get projects where we can improve the resources and then ultimately try to market those company or projects to companies that want to advance them further. So we've got some successes. We acquired a property called Troilus North, adjacent to the Troilus gold mine in Quebec, and we sold that for cash and shares to Troilus Gold. We had a property called East West that we acquired in Quebec that was adjacent to O3 Mining's Marvin property, which is an advanced stage property, and we were able to sell that property for cash and shares. So what we're looking for is to add value for our shareholders by doing strategic acquisitions and then trying to do divestitures in a relatively short period of time. So we have a portfolio of assets that we've acquired in essentially a down market, and then we're looking to monetize those as the market improves over time.
So, how would you say Emergent is positioned for success now?
I think we've got some very good projects. We have a earn-in with option joint venture with a company called Kennecott Exploration. They're a subsidiary of Rio Tinto, which is one of the largest mining companies in the world. So they are advancing our New York Canyon property in Nevada. They're going to spend 22.5 million US to earn a 75% interest in the property. So that is what could be a company maker for us if they're successful in their exploration. We have another property called Golden Arrow, which has a 300,000 ounce measured and indicated resource and would be an open pit heap leach target. It requires some additional exploration to expand the resources. So our goal there is to do additional drilling and try to double the resource size and potentially do a preliminary economic assessment that hopefully vend that project into an operating company. We also have a property called Casa South, that's south of the Casa Berardi mine, owned by Hecla Mining Corporation in Quebec. So it's a large property, and Casa Berardi mine is one of the flagship operations of Hecla. So if we're successful in exploration there, we would hope to be able to do some kind of transaction with Hecla. So those are the types of projects we have. Some very strategically located properties adjacent to existing mines, or properties that we've acquired cheaply in a down market, or maybe 2 or 3 properties that we've consolidated together through acquisition that make the combined properties have much greater value than the individual ones had on their own.
You announced visible gold in your initial drill holes in Quebec. Can you walk us through the results? And why is this significant for the company?
Yeah, we have a property called Trecesson. So it's just north of the Val-d'Or mining camp near the town of Amos in Quebec. So we acquired the property out of a bankruptcy process from another junior company, and we started an initial drilling program there. We had drilled 6 holes, and 2 of the holes had visible gold in them. So we're, excited by the results there. We still don't have any assay results back, but we completed, I think now, roughly 17 of the drill holes, and we'll be taking a break in the drilling program while we wait for assays to come back, and then we'll go back potentially this year with the phase 2 drilling program. So that property has historic drilling on it that had high grade intercepts, and our drilling hopefully will confirm that, and then we'll continue to expand exploration on that property.
Now, you also published the discovery of a new copper target named Emma, a new porphyry and skarn exploration target at your New York Canyon property in Nevada. What does Emma represent, and how does this differentiate from other exploration targets?
Sure. The Emma target is located at our New York Canyon property. So that's the property where we have the earn-in with option joint venture with Kennecott or Rio Tinto. So they started drilling on known targets in what's called the southern block of claims. 3 targets there called Copper Queen, Longshot Ridge, and Champion. So they did some confirmation drilling in about 10 holes in 2021. And they plan to continue drilling and are looking for skarn mineralization and copper porphyry mineralization there. We also have a block of claims called the North Block of Claims. So in 2022, they went back and did geological mapping and geophysics. They used a drone magnetic survey, and then they did soil and rock chip sampling. And they took about 41 rock chip samples on the northern block of claims, and the average grade of those rock chip samples was over 1.7% copper. So, we're very excited, from what we're seeing in the soils and rock chip samples that they took, and they're also planning to drill that target here. So they're going to be mobilizing a drill in the first quarter of this year. They're planning on drilling southeast of the Copper Queen project on the south block of claims, and this Emma target on the north block of claims. We're hopeful that, they'll ultimately discover a larger porphyry system there and ultimately continue on with exploration and earn a 75% interest in the property.
Why does Emergent operate in mining jurisdictions like Nevada and Quebec?
Yeah, for many years, the company operated in California, and we tried to permit a historic mine and get it into production here. We just found we were certain jurisdictions, it was very costly and difficult to do work in because of the uh, political and permitting regimes that are in place in those states. So um, we decided to focus the company's activities in two pro-mining jurisdictions, Quebec and Nevada. I think they're number three, and Nevada's number three, and Quebec is number six in Fraser Institute's 2021 survey of mining jurisdictions for investment attractiveness. So there's good geology there. There's lots of companies working. There's opportunities for acquisition and divestiture because there's so much mining activity there. In Quebec, they also have what are called flow-through mining investment structures where investors can acquire shares of your company and get tax deductions related to those share acquisitions. So there's federal and Quebec tax breaks for those investors. So it's easier to raise money for exploration in Quebec than it is in other jurisdictions because of that structure. So we just found that they're perfect jurisdictions for us to focus on.
What would you say sets the company apart from other exploration companies?
I think as a junior mining company, we have a great management and a lot of expertise and an understanding of the market. So, we developed the business model we have because we think it's particularly suited to junior mining companies. So, while we still have to go to potentially raise money as equity in the markets, if we're able to do strategic divestitures of certain assets and lessen the amount of money that we need to raise, hopefully we'll be able to advance our more significant projects like New York Canyon or Golden Arrow. So I think, it's kind of a way of minimizing the capital we have to raise for investors, while at the same time, we're able to have some very good core assets that hopefully, we have several that could be company makers if they get advanced.
Okay, now last question for you here, David. What are the major potential catalysts or timelines that emergent investors should be watching out for?
I think New York Canyon, obviously, with Kennecott drilling there in the first quarter of this year. We're going to be looking for those results coming out in the second quarter. And potentially, if they hit anything, I would expect them to continue on drilling throughout the year. So we're just going to have to wait and see what those results are. But, that's kind of first quarter, second quarter of this year. We've also been drilling at Trecesson in Quebec. We have the high grade intercepts where we saw visible gold. And so we'll be getting probably assay results coming back in the next 30 to 60 days there. So we are finishing sort of phase one drilling there. We're going to analyze the results from the phase one program and go back and do some additional permitting, and then go back with phase two drilling program later this year. So those are the main catalysts on those two properties that we see right now. And then we'll be looking at advancing some of our other properties throughout the year, different exploration activities. And we're always looking at potentials for acquisitions and divestitures that could occur with some of the other properties.
Okay, great. Well, that's all we have for you today, David. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. We'll have to get you back on to hear the assay results.
Great. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. We will be back again tomorrow, so be sure to stick around by hitting that notification bell and subscribing below before you leave. Bye.